J.D. Vance, let's look at this again. J.D. Vance made his vice presidential debut on the global security stage Friday in a scolding speech here, pressing Europe's centrist leaders to move over to accommodate the rising anti-migration nationalist voices they have at times sought to block from power. So he says, move aside, make way. This is why I keep telling you guys, we are in the biggest vibe shift in the history of the post-World War II era. This is it. We're in the biggest vibe shift. We're literally seeing the vibes just shifting, the zeitgeist shifting. And where the vibes are, that's where the politics are. Where the vibes go, the politics follows. That's the bottom line. And the vibes are what? The vibes are nationalism, militarism, all that stuff. That's the vibes. It's a big fat vibe shift. And so Vance is saying, honor the vibe shift. Make way for the vibes. It's like that scene in Aladdin, make way for Prince Ali. Make way for the vibes. The vibes are here. If you're not aligned with the vibes, then get out the way. This is what this Vance guy is saying. Get out the way. Make way for the vibe. Make way for the vibes. You don't pass the vibe check, get the hell out the way. Vance also, you have to understand, Vance is an older millennial. Vance ain't a boomer. He's not a Gen Xer. Vance is an old millennial. He's part of my generation. That's it. So really, guys, the boomers are dying out. The millennials are entering politics. They are entering politics. And when the millennials get full power in politics, there's going to be a lot of change going on. It's not going to be as pro-Israel as it used to be. The whole pro-Israel thing in America is crumbling. It is. Support for Israel is crumbling. The boomers are the biggest supporters of Israel in the American population. They are the most pro-Israel age demographic in the United States. Once the boomers die out, that's it. The boomers are the bulwark. They are the dam that blocks the river. Once you remove the dam of the boomers, it's done. I'm telling you, that's what Israel is terrified of. And I've said this numerous times, what terrifies Israel more than anything, more than Iran, more than the Muslim Brotherhood, more than Hamas, more than Hezbollah, is the American population going against Israel in masse. Is the American population having a majority unfavorable opinion against Israel. That is what Israel fears more than anything. Because if enough people in America hate Israel, then America's policy will change towards Israel. And Israel's biggest supporters are who? Europe and the United States, the EU and the United States. And if Israel loses the demographics, the majority demographics of these two blocks of power, then Israel will lose its international support. Africa don't give a shit about Israel. Latin America don't give a shit about Israel. Asia don't give a shit about Israel except for India, and no one gives a shit about India. So we're seeing the vibes manifest. Listen, it begins as this is how politics works. It begins as vibes, and if you do not have the vibes on your side, if you are not aligned with the vibes, then you don't have any power. You have to align yourself with the vibes. Now, before you say, well, Ched, that sounds like some magic shit. Well, it's not really magic. What it is the zeitgeist. It's the spirit of the age. Hegel talked about this, and a lot of right-wing, far-right people, they like to read Hegel, and they like to quote this line from Hegel where he talks about the new age and how he uses the analogy of an owl. I forgot exactly the words, but it's Hegelian. And there are certain moments in history where you have vibe shifts, where one moment, listen, for 1,000 years, everybody in Europe was all about, for thousands of years, people in Europe were about monarchy and emperors and chieftains, and then the Roman Empire crashed, and then what happened? You had the so-called Dark Ages, the advent of the Dark Ages, and then what happened? There were all these little kings and principalities and fiefdoms in Europe, and then you had, on top of that, you had lords, and you had the nobles, and you had the You had the landlords, and they ran all the land, and they had all the peasants living on their lands, and the peasants worked the lands, and then they could live on the lands, but then they had to give some of the food that they harvested to the owner of the land, to the lord of the land. Okay, then there was the king, and the king worked with the lords, and that was the system of Europe. That's how it was. And then all of a sudden, centuries and centuries later, there was a shift that happened. What was the shift? The shift was, we are tired of living under kings. We want to have a republic. We want to have democracy. And then in the late 18th century, you had what? The American Revolution. The American Revolution revolted against who? The king. That was a vibe shift. Total vibe shift. The Enlightenment set the stage for the vibes. But the Enlightenment unto itself was an indication of the vibe shift. That was the vibes. And if you weren't aligned with the vibes, man, they told you to get the hell out the way. As I said in last week's stream, America is what? It's a trend setter. So the French got inspiration from the Americans. But believe me, the will, the desire, the aspiration, the ambition to do revolution was already there. The seeds had already been sown. They were germinating. They were growing. And the soil was conducive for the growth. And what was the soil? What was that? It was the vibes. When all these Enlightenment writers, Voltaire, Diderot, Rousseau, when all these writers were writing about the Enlightenment and going against institutions, ecclesiastical institutions, governmental institutions, monarchy, what were they doing? They were conforming with the vibes. They were aligning themselves with the vibes. And so then what happens? What happened was the revolution, the French Revolution. They overthrew the king. The king didn't stand a chance. Why didn't the king stand a chance? He tried to. He put Diderot in prison. Diderot was put in prison. He went against the king. In fact, Diderot was such a fanatic, he said, I will finally be satisfied until I can strangle the last king with the intestines of the last priest. This is what Diderot said. They put his ass in prison. Didn't work. You can try to suppress it all you want. You can try to stop it all you want. You can try to make it illegal. You cannot prohibit things out of existence if those things that you wish to prohibit are in line with the vibes. So right when the vibes come, get the hell out the way. That's what I'm saying. And all the people who said, we're against the French Revolution, we're against the monarch, we're against the overthrowing of the monarchy, we love the king, we love King Louis, we love his wife, what happened to the queen and the king of France was a crime. What happened to those people? They got beheaded. And what was occurring? What was this entailing? What it was entailing was the people who were aligned with the vibes saying, you guys are not with the vibes, get out the way. And what happens when you have these big vibe shifts is everything will conform to the vibe shifts. The music will conform, the art will conform, the culture conforms. Everything starts to conform with the vibe shifts. So then, what does this entail? What it entails is you're going to have small pockets of people who are going to say no to the vibes. And those people get persecuted. So that's what happens. So what are we seeing in the Western world? We're seeing a vibe shift. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a vibe shift. And J.D. Vance, being a millennial, being from the younger generation, not being a boomer, he is more in tune with the vibes. He sees the writing on the wall. He sees the writing on the wall. And so the people who say, no, this is Nazism, no, oh, this is terrible, no, they're not aligned with the vibes. I'm not aligned with the vibes. I'm not. You can call me an old millennial boomer all you want. I'm not aligned with this bullshit. But the thing is that the feeling becomes, what happens is that the feeling of the vibes becomes so strong, it's very difficult to resist the vibes. Because you feel like you want to conform and you feel like, oh yeah, this is like, we're living in this new era and blah, blah, blah. And they want to talk about democracy and they want to talk about this is the will of the people. And well, they said the same thing about the Syrian Revolution. They said the Syrian Revolution was the will of the people. They said the Syrian Revolution was the people speaking. Oh, this is the people. Who gives a shit? Because the spirit of the people or the zeitgeist or the will of the people or whatever the hell you want to call it can at times be evil. So everybody wants to talk about, oh, it's the will of this is what the people want. It's the will of the people. It's democracy. Okay. I don't give a shit if it's the will of the people. I don't give a shit if it's the vibes. I don't give a damn if it's, oh, this is what the people want and this is democracy. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. That's all talk. What I care about is one thing. What's the motivation? What is the core of the desire? Is it evil? Is it good? Is it for good or is it for evil? Is it for justice or is it for injustice? That's what matters. But they want to talk to you about the spirit of the people and the will of the people. That's what they said about the French Revolution, and millions of people were butchered by the French Revolution. Millions! 3 million people were killed by the French Revolution. But that was the will of the people. And people were forced into concentration camps. Will of the people. Muslim Brotherhood took over Egypt in 2011. Will of the people. I mean, it's such horseshit. But everyone's, we got to respect democracy. What about the elephants in the room? The elephants in the room is not the will, the spirit of the people, the vibes. The elephant in the room is, what is the end goal of this? You know, Turkey is in Syria. Well, the Turkey is in Syria to help the Syrian people because they overthrew a tyrant. No, Turkey is in Syria because it wants to revive an empire. And it was in Syria where that very empire butchered 1 million Armenians. Or at least close to 1 million Armenians in the Deir ar-frickin' Zur. And if you look at the regions that Turkey is controlling currently, one of them is the Deir ar-Zur, the very area where they butchered hundreds of thousands of people by marching them through the Syrian desert, where they were starved and murdered and raped. I remember Rick Perry was warning, believe it or not, this is the freaking truth. You can read about it yourself. I kid you not, this is the facts. Rick Perry, he was the governor of Texas. And the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, said, the Ottoman Empire is coming back. I kid you not. I kid you not, guys. The truth was spoken by some governor of a state that everyone thinks is crazy. People, I'm not joking, Texas has such a reputation for being the crazy state, which is completely bullshit, by the way, because that shit belongs to Florida. Florida won that title long ago. That's the craziest fucking place in America. They ain't no state more crazy than Florida. That's one state I'll never move to. I'll never move to Florida. Florida is an insane asylum. Look at all the videos of cops arresting crazy people. Most of them are filmed in Florida. The governor of Texas, Rick Perry, came out many years ago. This was back when Obama was the president. And he said, the Ottoman Empire is coming back. And do you know what they did? They laughed at him. They laughed at that man. But he was, look around you. He was right. And back in the, I want to say in the late 90s, early 2000s, my father was telling people, Turkey's going to come back, and nobody believed them. Look around you. The truth is everywhere. It's happening. It's happening right before your eyes. And then you're reading all these articles by these think tanks. Turkey's coming back. The Neo-Ottoman Empire is being formed. The elephant in the room, guys. Doesn't matter how strong the vibes are. The vibes are not truth. The vibes are simply the hysterical wantings of the masses. That's what the vibes are. And those wants, those desires, those collective ambitions, they are simply emotions that are based on what people see and or what people perceive. But they're not entirely truth, nor are they necessarily truth. You have to look at the totality of the picture in front of you. Sure, the masses may point to real problems, but then you have to look at the solutions that they are proposing, or you have to look at the cults of personality that they are uplifting, and you have to see the dark realities of those cults of personality. And if you don't, then you could just be leading yourself astray.